In a moment, I'll teach you these 3 amazing techniques. They are very multifaceted and wonderful to use as exercises, warm-ups, or even as dedicated artworks. They are especially great in urban sketching because they provide enough versatility and ease of expression and would make an incredible addition to your arsenal of techniques, whether you're a beginner, advanced learner, or even a teacher. Hi, I'm Leila, a professional artist. Welcome to my art studio and this channel. Now, if you are picking up some interesting tips from this tutorial and would like to come back here anytime you'd like to, remember to press the subscribe button. If you would like to be notified about the next videos that I'm going to make, and I'm going to make some really cool things very soon for you guys, make sure to press the bell button as well. So that way YouTube will be sending you notifications about my next uploads. And of course, this tutorial is the best time to review this outdoor painting box from Lightwish. In the package, we have the box itself, a handle for the easel to carry around, a nice large paper clip to keep everything in place, a vessel for the water for washing the brush. It's quite nice, you know, usually you'd get plastic things like that. And the stickers, these are like jelly stickers and they're sticky from both sides. I'm not really sure what they are meant to be for, but let's have a look inside the box. Look at this wooden surface. It's beautiful. It's made from hard wood. And you can see here is a little way you can open it. Gosh, it's really tough. Ugh. Wow, look at that. So here we have the board. I'm not really sure why it's coming out. I've never reviewed one of those things, so it's very interesting. So these are magnets. Yeah, there we go. You can see how these are magnetized. And these, I'm not sure what these are for. So you can untwist it. It's like that. And then you can twist that in. And these areas, is this for... no, these are not really magnetic. Well, not strongly magnetic. Because I thought if these were metallic, then this can come in really handy. This is like a battery. You can just put those things there and it will hold your paper in place. But these are not. These are also magnets. So they're obviously to keep everything shut. All right, now this here, this is very, very strong. Very strong. So obviously if I put it like that and I lean against it, it's almost impossible to push it down. Like I really have to, yeah, this is like a workout session. And this, I'm assuming, is a pallet. And of course this bit would be for that. And obviously a little brush. Oh, here I have one of the brushes. This is also Lightwish. I think it was part of the set. And that one fits here beautifully. This is really perfect. But I guess you could also have this for a pen or something like this. And then obviously there are these holes here, maybe for brushes like that. That's very nice, very handy. So once you set up, you can have a whole bunch of different brushes. This is very firmly sitting in there. So obviously for mixing paint, this comes out. So you really want this to be elevated, not on your knee, but sort of elevated, otherwise it's gonna sit like that. And so we have 27 of these little paint holding things. Now these here on the side, I'll just show you guys. See these ones? The plastic's a little bit cracked. I'm sure this would be just a one-off thing, but just so you know, I always want to give you a very honest review, and I like to pay attention to little things like that. Now these things, I wonder if you can pop them out and maybe pop your regular half pans in here. It would be good if that was the case, because then you don't need to refill. And if you go and you can just pop the colors that you want, it would be super handy. I would love that kind of design. But let's have a look. Perhaps they're not designed to, which is a shame, because it would have been so convenient, to refill them and so on. And you hold the paper in place like that. But then if you've got a larger piece of paper and you're drawing, this is like a bump here and a bump here. That's going to create problems. I don't know. This is very interesting. So on the back, of course, we've got this area for water mixing, you know, to keep this thing in there. We also have the brush holding things, and we've got one of those. So this is designed to go onto a tripod. This little thing goes in here. Here we go. So then you just attach the string to it, and you can carry it like this. And so I guess they are offering this little spot here and this little spot here, so whatever's more comfortable, whatever you'd like to do. I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to trying it out. I would need to fill the colors that I want to take. Obviously, if I can't take the little plastic things out, go for a sketch, and I can show you those 3 magnificent techniques. Another thing I will be using today is a sketchbook by Paul Rubens. It's a watercolor journal. It has cotton pulp. Doesn't say 100% cotton, just cotton pulp, and it's called pressed. 300 GSM, 20 sheets. Both of those were sent to me by the brand. They did not pay me to review any of those, and I will leave non-affiliate links under the video. This book has a beautiful finish. I think it's man-made leather, and it's such a beautiful color, as well as their logo in gold. It has proper book binding, and the sheets are perforated for easy removal. This is beautiful. The texture on this paper is wonderful, and it is textured from both sides. I love when in journals paper has the same finish on one side and the other, unless you prefer to mix and match, for example, drawing and painting. This has the same texture on both sides. There's also a little strap there to keep it closed, and I love this with Paul Rubens books. They have a little, like a pocket for extra things. So maybe you have an image, or maybe you'd like to put in some kind of a paper clip or something to make things comfortable. Oh, I'm so excited. Let's go and try them out in the field. The day was just perfect. It wasn't windy, it was warm. First days of spring here in New Zealand. I tried to find a place where there's not many people walking around so that I could work in peace. Tripod from my studio light. Regularly when I go out to sketch, I usually just take my sketchbook and a tiny little palette with me. This time I had to have a backpack full of things. And my favorite trick for when painting outdoors is having a rubber band on your wrist and having a tissue tucked in there. So the first technique is the very simple and really easy, whether you are a beginner or an experienced artist. It can be a great warm-up for whenever you're starting to sketch something serious. You can use a pencil if you want to, or just go straight in with a pen. The trick here is to not remove the tip of your pen from the paper. Keep the same line, as much as you can, of course. The reason why this really helps you to study your surroundings is that you can keep your eyes on the subject that you are sketching versus constantly looking at the paper, because this technique allows you to tune in to your sense of placement versus just solely relying on your eyesight. That way your eyes are a little bit freer to look at the subject that you are working on. It is a perfect technique to work outdoors or even indoors, whether you enjoy live drawing or still life. The main thing is that you're not moving your hand away from the paper. There is also a specific charm in creating this continuous line. You can choose whether your lines are strong, sharp and edgy, or whether they're soft and squiggly. Perhaps you can let your personal character shine through, or maybe it's a specific treatment that you would like to apply to the subject matter that you are working on. So here I've used a mix of different sharpness. And just to show you, it was so lovely working outdoors, so relaxing. There was barely anyone there, so it was very peaceful. The pen that you want to use for this kind of a sketch unless of course you just want to leave it as a linear drawing, should be something that would not be able to be reconstituted with water, because here you can see watercolor application over the line. Now the way you would decide to apply paint is entirely up to you. You can have a limited palette, or you can use all the colors that you want. Granulating colors can also shine really well with this technique, or really smooth colors also can create a specific look. In this one, I'm using the mix of both. You can choose to use a very precise paint application or just create a really quick wash. Here you can see the painting, it's all done. I actually quite enjoyed working with this little wooden box, and the cleanup of the mixing plate was a breeze as well. Very easy. Just wipe it all off with a tissue. If you are enjoying this tutorial along with other tutorials on my channel, make sure to pop over and check out the Patreon page, because over on Patreon we have a really cool community where I can give you feedback on your art, where we discuss next videos. You can vote for what you want to see next, test out different bits and pieces, and some great follow-alongs. So if you're up for all of this, check out the Patreon page. And remember, by pledging over there, you will be supporting this channel as well. I really hope to see you on Patreon. Then I walked around for a while until I stumbled on this really cute little house. And I thought this would be a perfect place for me to show you the second technique. Now this technique is very rare. In fact, I haven't seen it shown anywhere on YouTube or any other tutorials, but it is amazing, especially when working on lightly colored buildings. When you work outdoors, the light that comes from the sun is warm, and the shadows usually appear much cooler. So in this technique, after creating a quick pencil sketch, you can use two colored pencils, a warmer shade and a cooler shade. How dark or how light would depend on your subject matter. What you want to do with these is create a line on your drawing with cool blue pencil on the areas of the shadow, and outlining warm areas with the yellow pencil. Now there are few points that this can be very helpful with. Number one, if you think that you will not be able to finish the sketch, you already know and have everything mapped out with cool and warm areas. Number two, when you are painting, you don't need to worry about creating the division. That's already been created by those two different pencils. Just make sure that these are not watercolor pencils so that they don't mix into your paint. And now you can go in and paint with whatever technique that you like to do. Here you can see that I'm spraying the paper with water and then applying colors, starting with the background. And as I'm painting, you can see that the warm and cool lines are shining through the paint, and they are already helping me to create the cooler and warmer aspects of that same color. Also, it makes it a little bit easier now for me, because I have got everything planned out on my paper, and I can just go in and add cooler and warmer areas with my brush. Again, with this technique, you can create very detailed artworks or very sketchy ones. Always take into consideration the size that you are working on. This is quite a small sketchbook. It's about A5 size, so half of your printer sheet. That way, you don't really have a lot of space to really get wild with paint, and I didn't want to create any highly zoomed in sketches either. And so here, as the work progresses, you can really see how much help those lines have created. This can be a really good technique if you are a teacher and you're trying to teach your students to understand the warm and the cool areas a little bit better. Here you can see that I'm creating a yellow glaze and a blue glaze. And what I'm actually doing is, within the boundaries of the areas that I've marked down with a blue pencil, I'm applying a bluish glaze, and where there's yellow pencil, I'm creating a wash of yellow color. Now that creates a really strong feel of sunlit areas. And as I said, it works beautifully on light colored structures or objects. I mean, it works just as well on dark ones, but the light ones are just probably the most visible. Now then I walked around, and this is not a technique number 3. This is just something that I wanted to sketch because it was so beautiful. I couldn't go past it. I also thought it would be an interesting way to test out this box without using the tripod. It was quite comfortable to use as well because the box itself is quite heavy, but at the same time I felt like I had to keep the front of the box sort of in the ear just so that the little water vessel would not be constantly pushing up. Now you can see by the light the sun started to set, and I thought I really need to get a move on and show you the third technique, you guys. This third technique is absolutely amazing. I love it. It does take a little bit more work, but all you need to have is your regular black pen. Yes, you don't even need an ink pen or anything special or arty. Just your regular black pen and create a drawing. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but you can create lines where the texture is and so on. Then you want to dampen the whole paper. So I did it with a spray bottle and then brushed over with a brush. After that, you want to grab some ink. The kind of ink that once dry does not re-wet. So here I'm using 2 colors of Indian ink. How crazy you want to go with application of the ink is entirely up to you. Now you can see that I'm smudging everything here to form this not entirely uniform but quite a smooth color. You can use any colors for the background to create the feel. The only trouble was that I needed to wait for everything to dry perfectly. And because it's still really early days of the spring, the sun sets quite early, so things got dark and very cold, and the background still wasn't drying. That's when I knew that I had to go back home. Okay, so now I'm home. This is the next day. This is all perfectly dry. And I'll just finish this technique in the studio. It was getting too dark and too cold out there, and Porsche is right here again. He refused to go with me, does not like leaving the house too much. And if he does, usually he stays really close by. Okay, here you can start working with darker areas and also lighter areas. So the first thing I'm going to do is Porsche, can you move? I'm going to mix a little bit of white. Please move. Here, now this is a white gouache. So as you can see, this is actually a mixed media artwork, right? Because I've used Indian ink first here. Now I'm using gouache. And here I'm mixing in a little bit of cadmium yellow to the white. And at the moment I've got few photographs open on my notebook. That way I can actually look what the sky was doing when I was doing all of this. So here we've got the brightest area. And you see, this is why you want to work with something that's not going to mix into your paint and change the colors. So what I'm doing is I'm going around the areas that I've sketched with the pen. Now this exercise is great if you are learning to look at the light, for example. If you love working with silhouettes, because here that's exactly what I'm doing here. And here, of course, little gaps in the fence. And because this is gouache, if you want to, you can always wait for it to dry and then go over the second layer. Next, I'm going to mix a little bit more of white into here and add a bit of red. And here, I'm going to just carry on from this. And you see here, the negative space becomes a little bit all over the place because there are lots of leaves and tiny little branches. You see how beautifully now the web of those branches is coming through? This is probably the most demanding technique out of the other ones that I've showed you. The first one was obviously the simplest one. You can use hot press paper for a smoother look. This paper has a little bit of a bumpiness to it because it is cold pressed. Now I'm mixing some more red and white into the previous mix. This can be a really fun technique to experiment with because depending on the colors you're going to use underneath, they will affect your work in quite a strong way. For example, imagine if I would have used blue and green, or if I would have used black, and so on. So you can really play and experiment. It's all just limited by the materials you have and your imagination. Also, what I'm doing here now with watercolor and gouache mixed together, you can create easily with acrylic paint as well. In fact, acrylic will probably offer you even a greater coverage. You can use your fingers to soften and blend colors together. Now I'm adding a bit of blue to the mix. Now remember, you can always just go for black and white as additional colors. It is really up to you. Now we can just leave it like this. I love this sort of a very simple, very suggestive look. Or we can go on and add a little bit of the shadows too. Okay, so now I have a little bit of black. I can mix Van Dyke brown to go together. And in some areas, if for example you want to create a little bit more of the contrast, one thing to remember though is because you do have a layer of ink that's already filled up all of the pores in your paper, the paper will behave a little bit differently and the paint will take a little bit longer to dry. Now, if I can just stop and make a suggestion here as well, try not to paint over all the branches to completely cover, that ink background that we've created, because then you will just get a regular painting. This technique works really well because you've got 3 layers. And you can also see how I'm not reworking everything. These areas like the house here and the trees here, I'm just leaving them with those first 2 layers where I've just used the pen and the ink. That way you can really play up some areas. And I want to really, this area of contrast, I really want to make that a focal point. So here, just using black on its own, I'm creating some strong definition. And now the same thing with white. Okay, so now let's have a look at all of the sketches, and so that I can give you some more pointers and tips, because when I did the voiceover for the outdoor sketching, it's a little bit trickier to get into detail. Okay, so the first sketch here was when I've used a pen. Now this was an ink pen, and the kind of ink that dries and does not re-wet. So it's very important if you want to use any kind of paint over the top. Otherwise, you're just going to have a blurry mess. You can create a pencil sketch, just few simple lines if you want, or you can just go straight in with the pen. I regularly, when I do this as a warm-up or sometimes exercise with my students, we don't even do a preliminary pencil sketch. It's the kind of a technique where you are not showing off the best skill of realistic techniques and proper perfect rendering and whatever. This is more about being in the moment. This is more about paying more attention to your subject matter than actually your painting, and it's more about the feeling. Like when I look at this, I instantly feel that movement through the brush, those light spots. It's the color that talks to you and so on. But even when it's just a drawing on its own as well, it is more about capturing what is there rather than measuring carefully and placing everything carefully. That's why it's a great warm-up exercise, but also very good because it's reasonably quick, and you can see how at any moment I could have stopped painting and it would have been sufficient enough artwork. Now the next sketch that I did here, this was using the color pencils. Now, the color pencils that I use, they are not oil color pencils, so they do not push the paint away. If you use those, there's nothing wrong with using those, but it will create a different kind of effect. Now here, you can still see some of the pencils showing through from underneath the paint, but they did not exactly repel the paint and push it off. Whenever you are using new materials, you always want to try them out and see how they behave together as well. So again, this is absolutely perfect for sketching on the go. If you want to do a very, very quick sketch, but you want to capture that warmth of light, and you capture it through warmer light areas and cooler shadows, it is most perfect. And from my experience, it works the best when you have a very light or a white structure or a monument or something, because then that warmness and coolness stay true to that yellow and pretty much blue color as well. So please don't pass this one by. It's a great way to do that. Now, this little sketch, it's no particular technique, just, just doing my regular thing. I wanted to test the box out, and I will actually get back to what I think about the box and what I think could be improved, the things I liked and the things that I think weren't very useful as well. So you can watch that section of the video too. So this technique here, now this is a really fun technique, and I think it is more fun because no matter what materials you have on hand, whether you have watercolor, inks, whether you have acrylics, you can take part and do something similar to this. Also, the variation of what kind of a wash you want to put underneath, and you can see all of these colors are coming through, and they're just there. So it's kind of a merging together that looseness, but also representational aspect of it. And you can go as far into detail as you'd like, and so on. I like using just a regular, like your regular pen for it. If you would like to have stronger lines, then you can use a similar kind of pen that I used for this sketch, because it is more black and it would come through a little bit stronger. Now here I wanted to create these silhouettes of objects to really play up that contrast. This can be done during daytime as well, but the best I find this technique comes through is when you are looking at objects directly on the path of the light source. I hope you've enjoyed these techniques. Now, let me give you the actual review and my thoughts about the Pochade Box from Lightwish. I've used this in different ways, and I can tell you now what I found very useful about this little thing and what was something that I would actually change. I think these things, just from using it, I think they're meant to be something that you can twist and hold like a book in place here. What I do think would have been very useful to do here is to make these out of metal that works really well with magnets. So that way we would have been able to just unscrew these. And if you're using a single sheet of paper, just to do this, one here, one there. And so you've got it now being held up by the metal and the magnets. But it doesn't really work like that. I'll just show you. See, they keep sliding off. They're not. So that would have been a really cool feature, very, very useful. But it is useful if, for example, you want to put something here like a book. I did use it, I think, when I did the horizontal sketches like that. Another thing that I found very uncomfortable is anytime, and especially I found it when I was working on the third technique outdoors, I wanted to put this quite flat and have that as a table here. But because it is so top heavy, it just kept doing this, and I constantly felt like I had to hold on to the tripod. So then I just completely abolished that idea, and I did it like this, and then I was just working on top of this area, which made it very difficult for me to access water, which is why I used the spray bottle, which I had with me. I sort of have a feeling, because it is so small, you can't really create large artworks here, so it would be very difficult for me, for example, to do an A3 sketch, right? I could probably get away with A4. I'll just grab a sheet to see. So here we go. So this is about an A4 size. I probably could get away with doing an A4 size, but A3, which is twice the size, this is way too small for it, so I'd have issues with being able to hold it down, and the wind would be just constantly, flopping it over. So this is the thing that I think it's not as versatile in terms of the size. Hello to you too, my friend. How was your walk? Yeah, so that's the one thing that I sort of thought, and if I'm working on a sketchbook, to be honest, like if I'm working on something little like this, I can just take this with me as is and have a little, just tiny little palette there to work with. It's one of those things where, do you really need a stand when you're working on a small sketchbook? Probably easier to do it on your knee. At the same time, if you're working on something larger, this is way too small for it. So that's how I feel. But if you need to go between, say, for example, working at home and working maybe, I don't know, at school or something like this, and you predominantly work on small sized paper and stuff, then perhaps this can be quite comfortable and it would actually make things a little bit easier. The quality of this is quite nice. The wood is lovely, and it's not like a glued on pieces or anything else. It's a really nice, proper wood all the way through. These things as well, if I was to tweak the design, I would have made them so that you can pull them out and put any half pan in there. This would mean that I don't need to squeeze extra paint, and if I'm choosing to use different colors, I can just pop them from my regular palette and pop them in here rather than filling them up. You see, I didn't even fill them up because I wasn't sure if I would be using this, and I'd be using this for a long time, and if I'd be sticking to those colors as well. But having said that, there are lots of little areas where you can do this. Another thing as well is this. It is lovely, this little ball. I really like it. Even just like this on your table, like this, to put little things in there of some sort or something. It's great. But you can see how when it's like that on the table, it sort of pops, and especially if it's something that's moving, you get this. If you have a spot where you're painting and then you want to move just, I don't know, 3-4 meters to the other side, you don't want to put everything away, empty out your water, clean everything out, close it. And when I tried moving with this, the water would be spilling everywhere. At some stage, I had all of these little things filled up with dirty water, and I had to clean them out. I mean, it was lucky I had quite a few tissues with me and stuff, but it's one of those things where having like a little plastic lid that you could put on there would just make it so much more convenient. Also, it means that you don't need to take a different bottle with you, because it depends, of course, on what kind of colors you're using, but some colors, like say cadmium yellow, I specifically did not take those colors with me, but some colors can be toxic for environment, so you don't really want to be emptying this out into like a park or a river or somewhere where you're painting. That's why like I would have a bottle, a plastic bottle that I was putting clean water in, and then I had a little plastic like a can kind of a bottle that I would just pour the dirty water into. But again, if this would have had a lid, it would have been so much easier, because then you can just put the lid, take it home and deal with it, without having to carry all these bottles. And that's the fact why I actually had to have a backpack, because there was just so much stuff extra that I had to take that I normally wouldn't, because when I go, I have like this little jar with a lid, so it's filled up with water. I use it, and then when I'm done, I just close it and I just take it home and I change it over there. All right, another thing as well is that how they've got different sized holes here, but even the smallest hole is a little bit too big for some of the smaller brushes, so that's why you might want to rest it in here. Also, if you have like maybe some kind of a board or something, you could also rest it like that, I guess. Maybe that's what this is for. I still haven't figured out why this is kind of like that. So obviously it's designed to be taken out, so perhaps you take it out and you rest it like this when you're painting. But again, it really restricts the size. If your size is like that or smaller, that's perfect, but if not, then you're gonna have trouble. So yeah, it's one of those things where there were certain things that I really, really liked. I really liked this handle as well. It was especially helpful when I was twisting it onto the tripod or removing it. When it becomes sort of wobbly, you don't want it to drop, so you can just put this on your wrist as you are turning it. So that was very, very helpful. And this bit here as well, very strong, which makes it very easy. Another thing I really, really loved about this is the mixing plate. The mixing plate is just perfect, and I've used it and I didn't wash it. Every time I just use my dirty tissue to wipe this clean, And it is just, you know, you can see here, I haven't washed it or anything like this. It's so easy to clean. It is perfect. And it's really easy to mix the paint on. It doesn't bead too badly or anything like this. Did have a lot of fun going out with this. But again, you know, I'm just telling you what I felt, and there are so many people, and everyone has preference for one thing or the other. So some of those points that I thought maybe were a little bit troublesome or could have been done a bit better, maybe some of you would actually absolutely love. And what I said about the using the magnets as well, maybe you can, like, this is an old spent battery that I have, because it comes in handy for lots of things. So, you know, you could have a couple of little ones here, even if they're smaller, and just do that thing with the paper, because that would be very comfortable, very handy to use. We'll leave the links under the video as always. Links are non-affiliate, so I'm not making any profit from any of this. Okay, now let's have a look at the book. I really liked the sketchbook. I there's something about the color as well. Maybe it's just me personally. It of course it is me personally, because we're such different people and we all love our own little things. But this is like the perfect leather brown sort of a shade that I think is just so beautiful. Because of that artificial leather, it is just, you know, you don't get it dirty. Everything just comes off. A few times I had to put it on the ground and there was some mud and stuff. All I had to do just wipe it off, and it's all nice and clean again. So I do like this sort of a finish. Now the paper. The paper I found quite interesting. It's one of those papers that doesn't seem to dull the colors down. You know how watercolor, when you use it and when it's wet, it's super bright, very strong, intense colors, and then things dry down and it seems like you just did an underpainting and you need another layer. I find that especially true with cold pressed papers. But this paper did not do that. I don't know if it's because of its composition or because of the treatment on the top, but it's just, the colors are absolutely bright and very vivid. I don't see that much of a mutation, you know, that happens with watercolor when it dries. So Porsche at the moment thinks he's my microphone, so he's moving his head towards my mouth. It's hilarious. So the second sketch, I used the color pencils. I used them a little bit, not that much, but I thought that it received pencils quite well. It does have a little bit of texture, like a cold pressed paper, but I think it's a lovely texture. It's nothing too, again, it is a personal preference. I don't like papers when the pattern is very, very geometric and very repetitive. So for some reason, I find those papers, they break away from the actual painting. They just a little bit too much. So this paper is not like this. It is bumpy, but the bumpiness is in a little bit of a chaos. And I find this the most beautiful version of paper. So I did this sketch as a second technique, and then I did this other sketch, and you can see how bright the colors are. Like, I mean, look at this. Isn't that just gorgeous? The yellows and the pinks, and they just stand out so much. Handled water reasonably well. I mean, I did not super soak it. Maybe this one I did actually. And it handled this material quite well as well. Now, because these sheets are perforated though, you can see how, because there was so much water that went all the way through, because I wanted to make one long one, that staining came through on the side as well. And this technique was quite good to test it out with like a mixed media as well. So I think it handled ink really well. I really loved the way that the ink spread on there. That was beautiful as well. I mean, you saw it, you know, before I started mixing it quite a bit together. And layering up like there's no problem at all. It did not fluff up. It did not, like sometimes different papers start to become blotchy when you've got few different mediums on there. Of course, these are more sort of on a student grade papers, but this is priced more like a student grade paper anyway, you know, sketchbook. It's lovely. I actually really enjoyed working with this paper, and you can see that the texture of it really brings out the best of the materials as well. So I think it would be perfect for sketches like this, you know, taking it with you somewhere, or maybe experimenting or doing swatches. You know, sometimes it can be quite interesting to have color mixes and swatches and different tests to have in a separate little book, because colors come out beautifully on this. And then I also did one sketch at home. And I actually, when I was walking around, I stumbled on this really cool little spot where there were two different trees blossoming. One was red and the other one was pink. And it was so beautiful, just the leaves in the distance having that bluish haze and the deep green leaves. It was just like, it took my breath away. But it sort of did not go along with any of the techniques that I wanted to show you. Wouldn't have, well, I mean, you probably could still, of course, use, but not, you know, wouldn't have been the perfect situation. But, you know, I couldn't really stop there and do a sketch. So what I did is that I did a little sort of a shot of it and a couple of photos. And I wanted to test out the masking tape. So because I forgot to take it with me, that's another thing, you know, when you have to take so many things with you, you kind of more likely to forget something. What I did is I thought, well, to give you a full review, I need to see how this paper works with masking tape. And, you know, because for so many of you, it's a deal breaker sometimes. So this paper worked really well with my masking tape. The purple masking tape that I'm using in this sketch is a soft tack tape. So it's not super intense. It does not have really sticky glue. And I left it on there. So I've stuck the tape on. And then I painted the painting and I left it to dry until probably the evening. So it would have stayed on there for a few hours. And it came off no problems at all. There was nothing, no paper, even no fluff that was ripping off. So, I mean, in my books, it's quite a good sign. Don't know how it would react if you put on a full strength masking tape on there. Maybe that would cause some damage to the paper. But my soft tack one did not do any damage. Yeah, and so see here, again, you can see that, you know, that previous artwork where it leaked through the perforated line. So these lines, the, you know, perforation, they make things easy when you fold the page over. See, it folds on that line there. It also is very convenient if, for example, you're doing a card. You can do a card for someone and then just take it out. But when you are using a lot of material, a lot of pressure there, it can seep through. So if this is something that you want it to be super pristine, very clean, none of those sort of things, then perhaps you need to look for a different kind of a book that doesn't have those little perforations. For me, that's fine. I think that the book is just that, you know, it's a sketch. You know, some edges are not finished. That's the beauty of it. So that's fine. But if you are I know some people want to be super perfect, then maybe this would be a deal breaker for you as well. Again, links for this book I will leave under the in the video box and the video description. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to do more sketches with this. It also has this little thing, and probably if you like reading a book or something, these things can be quite handy. But I find, especially when you're out and about, they tend to get into things. Like they tend to get into paint. There were a few times that I had to change the position of this so that it didn't go in there. So I did not want to cut this just because I'm doing a review. But if you're one of those people that also gets annoyed with this, you can just cut it off or make it shorter or something like that. That's probably what I will do. Biggest plus for me with this specific sketchbook is that both sides, this and this, are very, very similar. They are so close together that you don't need to think of, oh, I can't do the subject matter on here because I'm not going to get the result I want. They're both sides are very, very similar. I think one is maybe just tiny little bit stronger, but when you're painting, you don't feel the difference that much. And that's why something like this is possible as well, because if I have a perfectly smooth paper here and very rough paper here, it's gonna look like two different artworks, because sometimes it also absorbs the paint differently and the color can change. So having this very similar, that's a very big plus in my books. I did not use this pocket. Would like to work on something and you've got a photo of something there, like maybe you want to take this on the bus with you, then it's quite handy to keep all of those things in there. Okay, you guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope you will be using these techniques in your own art, and maybe you'll find a way to develop them even further, because we're all so different and we all find certain things that we are drawn to. So I'm here showing you something, and then you can take it away, you can practice a little bit, and then bring in some of your own take on those things. And let me know if you get other ideas that you'd like to try, or that maybe you want to suggest, or anything like this. Let me know in the comments. I always look forward to reading them, you guys. I want to say a big thank you to my wonderful patrons for supporting this channel, and also for creating such a wonderful community over on Patreon. I just love going over there and checking all the messages and stuff like this. It is so wonderful. Thank you so much, guys, for making it so great. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next upcoming videos. See you soon, guys. Bye bye.